Welcome to Jasiri.
Today on Jasiri, we discuss the hot topics that have graced our social media timeline and buzzed the media pages. The government or the religion. Late Leah Sharibu, 16-year-old young girl apprehended from the Boko Haram camp and refuses to denounce her faith as a Christian, is dead. Does racism still exist in Africa? Nigerian celebrity Tayo Faniran narrates his ordeal in the hands of the South African government. University education, a gap in understanding. A lecturer scolds his student by wearing her wig in class. It's about to get hot today. Welcome to Jasiri.
I'm Nelly Kalu on Jasiri this afternoon. It's morning actually on weekend. Okay. Our weekend edition of Jasiri, 11 o'clock in the morning. Thank you very much for joining us. And we are going to have a say on all of the hot topics we've already introduced to you. We begin, of course, with the story of Leah Sharibu, who was abducted on the 15th of April 2018. She was abducted when she was about 14, and her mother says she's about 16 now. Leah Sharibu was abducted with about 110 Dapchi schoolgirls in Borno area, in Yobe State, in the northeastern area of Nigeria. The northeastern area is, of course, the home to Boko Haram terrorists, where they spread from border to border. The conversation is not about the terrorists, but about how the Nigerian government has handled the release of this young girl who was unable to go home with the rest of her schoolmates because she insisted that she will remain Christian. Joining me, of course, on the show today, I'm going to let my guests introduce themselves, because only one of our guests looks like a superstar. I wouldn't want to step down on that introduction. So please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Precious Omoragi.
Oh, so humble. Okay, and?
Hi, I'm Sibu.
Sibu, that's all you want to give me? Sibu Nyanda is, of course, a politics host here in News Central Television. And Precious has the ability to take your face from grass to grace. Okay? All right, now let's start with the story of Leah Sharibu. Now, this is a very serious story and a quite sensitive one. This young girl, the reason she's back in the news, and unfortunately, we tend to forget, and then issues happen, she's back in the news, which we should constantly keep her in the news, actually, until she's released. But the reason she's back in the news is because one of the aid workers, an aid worker was abducted, and she obviously spoke on a video, and it's of course one of these videos that terrorists cause their captives to make, to hear that we're alive, here are our conditions. And she mentioned, or she seemed to have inferred, that Leah Sharibu was dead. So far, there is no confirmation to that story, and many of Nigerian government officials believe that she's still alive, politicians and otherwise, and there is no true confirmation that Leah Sharibu is dead. Her mother is still touring the United States, trying to get help for her daughter. Let's know, how do you think the Nigerian government has fared so far in handling the case of Leah Sharibu? Let's start with you, Sibu.
I actually was hoping you'd let a Nigerian person respond first.
That's exactly why I'm not. Yeah, because it's not just about the Nigerian government. It's a failure of the African borders, number one, where we've got terrorists go from border to border. And of course, it's a failure of a life, you know, a failure of people's responsibility towards the life of a young woman. So I think it cuts across.
So I think what you said about, you know, how unfortunate it is that these sort of stories make it to, you know, the public discourse, but they also immediately leave the public discourse when there's something else that's now considered a headline. And I think it's incredibly unfortunate because it's a reflection of our becoming increasingly desensitized as a people by these stories. You know, perhaps it's the frequency of the stories, or perhaps it's the level of inaction we're seeing at governmental level, and maybe a sense of feeling helpless as people on the outside. But like you're saying, this is not just, you know, a failure or perhaps a lack of action from the state itself, but also from neighboring countries. You know, we're able to rally our troops where other crises are concerned. But here, in responding to these terrorist groups, we aren't doing enough as, you know, neighboring states who, I mean, if we look at Kenya's had similar issues. We look at South Africa, we haven't had a confirmed issue, but we've had scares.
Yes.
So this is certainly...
And we are visiting South Africa very soon in our next hot topic, because you're South African.
Yeah.
And so it's a major concern. Precious is Nigerian.
Yes.
Let's hear what you have to say about what the Nigerian government has done so far.
It's so sad how when her news broke out, it was very rampant on social media. Everybody was going on and on and on. And I was going to tell you before the show started that it's crazy how months later nobody was saying anything about Leah anymore.
Yeah.
Nobody was on Instagram doing hashtag what's happening to Leah. I mean, on Instagram it was crazy. I saw it everywhere, but I was like, forget social media. What's actually being done? Forget the wave that's being created. What are we doing aside from social media? And it's so sad that it's almost a year after, and there's no updates. Nobody's saying anything. It's until now that they're saying she's dead. That's when people are like, oh, who is Leah? Oh, that girl we were posting about. So I think it's very sad that even after all the social media rage, there was nothing being done in real life. Because social media is not
Which
real
is
life.
really what happens to social media outrages most
Yes.
times. That's where it ends.
It's sad.
Yeah. Now, go
I was
ahead.
just going to say, to be fair, you know, I mean, if we look at what happened in Sudan, it really was social media
Yes.
and many of the blogs that were being created, even by people in the diaspora who still sympathized with their fellow Sudanese people on ground. It really was the power of social media that helped spread the word and get more people to jump into the struggle for Sudanese freedom. Similarly, in the Arab Spring, we saw that. But I completely agree with what you're saying. We need to understand what the point is. So if you're creating this hashtag, if you're contributing to the hashtag, do you know what the ramifications of that are?
The Nigerian government has not been in the best light in dealing with Boko Haram, getting the captives out, or any story surrounding it. But one thing they have tried to do is secure the release of some of the captives. However, this story is a bit different because it also has a religious tilt to it. Now, I want to look at martyrdom for a second. We are in a world now where the appeal for religion varies from generation to generation. Even in Africa, where Pentecostalism has such a wide spread, not so many people feel that lives should be lost for religion, or think people should be deprived of certain basic regard because of religion, whether for good or for bad. The hold of religion is becoming quite loose. And one would say, would it have cost a young girl like this anything to have said, you know what, I denounce, let me go home and reclaim my religion? It mattered so much to her to have a religious identity than it did for her to be free. So we come to a point where the debate could go, perhaps is the rage isn't so great because of the religious inclination involved, because it will take the story from being a captive young girl to Christians versus Muslims. So here we find ourselves in a very dicey situation. Now, I have laid this out for you to pick whatever aspect of it you choose and tell me what you really think. Would this have been easier for Leah? Would this have been easier to understand if the religious connotation was never there? Precious, you could begin.
Wow, that's a very, very, very deep one. Personally, I feel everyone is entitled to whatever they believe. I feel like everyone, you can believe in whatever you want to believe in. It's a free world. But she's a young child and she's probably just been introduced to, Christianity.
It has become her identity.
It has become her identity. She's read books about how a lot of martyrs in the Bible have said, I claim Jesus Christ, I'm a Christian. And there was a scenario, I don't know if it was in Kenya, where there was a shooting in a mall and some people were killed because they said they were Christian. So I feel she was just like, you know what, maybe they're going to let me go if I'm a Christian. She's a child, like you said. I don't think she really had anything in her mind that says, let me say my Christianity and let them kill me. I feel she just was a child and was speaking out of
what she believed.
So even if her classmates were Muslims, she didn't feel, I have to claim to be a Muslim for them to let me go. She felt they abducted us because they wanted to abduct us. I mean, they abducted the Chibok girls. Weren't they Muslims? So why would that change anything for me? So she just said in my opinion, she just said her own religion, and apparently they had to keep her, and which is very sad.
Sivu, what do you think?
I think this is an example of the peril of extremism, because this is exactly why this situation happened to begin with. And I'm inclined to think that we shouldn't be living in a world where you're declaring what your faith is leads to your death to begin with, So I personally probably would have decided, okay, I'll denounce this, and then when I get home, I'll reintroduce my relationship with Christ, but that's me, somebody else is completely entitled to having their faith.
Just before we address the fact that foreign governments are speaking up again, because they speak every now and then. I remember the case of Chibok girls, Michelle Obama have the voice of it, even though this was a Nigerian situation. But as the First Lady of the United States, that was a big influence. Just a yes or no. Does martyrdom and the need to die for a cause, does it still have an influence in our generation today, in our world today? Just a yes or no. Does it really matter if you die for a cause?
I think it does, because why are these extremists doing this? They don't mind if they die. Boko Haram people are suicide bombers. They're going out to kill themselves for
a cause, for an ideology.
Religion. So I think it does matter.
Okay, Sibu.
I'm inclined to agree with that. I think we still find ourselves living in a world where people don't appreciate the existence of a healthy middle.
And an issue higher than, foreign governments are involved in this now. Well, they've always been involved in it, but their voices are back up now.
Yeah.
Really, there's no foreign government speaking about this that has so much credibility that will make you say, now that they've spoken, things will get any different. Change. But what do you think about their influence now? Back on the Leah Sharibu issue.
I don't think there's really going to be much of a difference. It's sad that I'm as pessimistic as I am about what the outcome is likely to be, but I don't see it changing anything.
Okay, well, it's incredibly sad that we're speaking about Leah Sharibu now. It's incredibly sad that whether it's confirmed that she's dead or alive, I can't trust that the outrage will continue. Some people on social media have asked for the resignation of the the vice president of Nigeria because he's Christian, and some have asked actually that even the president of Nigeria speak up or step down because he has failed a young child. It's not about Muslims or Christians, but he's failed the entity, of Nigeria, as well as the Northeast, itself. So it's there is no resolution to this until we see the captives freed. There is no resolution until Boko Haram terrorists are shut down finally. There is none. However, it's Hot Topics. We have to move on to the next Hot Topics on Jasiri. Do stay with us. I have Sibo and Precious here. My name is Nelly. We'll keep talking in a bit. Welcome to Jasiri. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Jasiri, and our Hot Topics are taking us all the way to xenophobia. We have a South African here, my resident South African.
Oh, Lord.
And I have a Nigerian here, so perfect.
Sorry to cut you off. South African people or women are most of the nicest people I've met. So I don't know why. Yes, I've been to South Africa once and I made a lot of friends, and I've come here before and I met the South Africans here and they're so nice, and it just bothers me why there's xenophobia in South Africa. So who are the people that are doing this xenophobia? Are they extremists?
But Precious, do you know how limiting what you just said is? Because you're saying in South Africa, when you visited, the ones you met, which is your experience is mine. I've been there once, and the ones I met were very nice.
Exactly.
And the South Africans in Nigeria have been very nice. In Nigeria?
True. No, but then the people in South Africa.
In Nigeria. You never know. Someone's giving me that look like, in Nigeria alone? Like, so I think Precious is asking, which street does xenophobia happen?
It's true.
But it is true. It does happen. It does happen. And there are actually certain areas where it's more predominant, than others. I'm not going to put Sibo on the spot to give us an entire map of South Africa. Like, according to xenophobia, South African experts. So I would do that. But The story making the waves is about Tayo Faniran. He was a former, he was a BBN housemate, and his experience with South African police. So now it's not just about his South African neighbors. So let's not generalize. It's the police. And he believes that his treatment by the South African police was, encouraged by xenophobia or xenophobic sentiment towards him being Nigerian. He's probably correct. But I also think that he would probably have been treated this way by SARS in Nigeria anyway. And that wouldn't have been xenophobic, but just losing power with impunity, without control, and unchecked power for civilians. So we're going to take a short moment and hear what Tayo has to say, and then we'll continue to look at this either from the xenophobic aspect or power just running amok without any control.
Africa, we're still enslaved. This is a problem that affects every African. Even waking up this morning, I can't even say if I slept or whatever. My body is sore through the beating was too much. The bitterness, the hatred. 2 handcuffs on someone that is not a criminal. Didn't take me through the counter or whatever. Took me through the back, and the beating continued and everything. But above all, I'm not angry. Because 2 wrongs cannot make it right. I'm not even maybe interested in pressing charges or whatever. At this moment, I want to thank God for my life, but every African should learn from this. Don't see it until it becomes your turn, or maybe someone close to you again becomes a victim. It happens every time. It happens every time. I'm just, emotional about the whole thing, because this is not the Africa that we should have. This is not cool at all.
All right, Precious, let's begin with you. You watched this video, it made you angry. Why?
Yes. It made me angry because, from the popular song, We Are Africans, I don't think I should be experiencing this kind of thing in my own fatherland, because hate it or love it, Africa, we are all one. We have the same skin color. We have the same bond. We're one big continent. So I don't get why one side of the continent should hate or mistreat another person. I watched the video and I was so angry. In my head, I was like slapping the officials that kept touching him, and it didn't make any sense to me. How you already saw him making a live video and you were still trying to pounce on him to beat him. So imagine if that video wasn't there, what they were going to do to him. Because if you notice, the official was pacing around.
That's actually a big point, the disregard for the video.
The disregard, they know this video is not going to do anything. I'm going to still do what because they had to call other people and see how they pounced on him. Even with the live video being on, they don't care. So imagine if that phone wasn't there, what was going to happen to him? It's actually very sad. And I really feel bad for Tayo, but I feel she should speak more, because I'm probably talking from, I'm a Nigerian and everything, so she should speak from the South African aspect. The expats.
Precious is like, Precious just said, before you shoot me for being Nigerian, let's give it to the South African.
Put the spotlight on the South African in the room. Okay. So it's incredibly unfortunate. So the first thing is that we do, like you were saying, I think it was Nelly who was saying, could this have happened if it was SARS here, for example, right? We do have a problem in some instances of brute force from our police force, so there are examples of this level of brutality even
towards South
Africans.
Okay.
But having said that, it would be completely disingenuous for me to pretend that this doesn't have anything to do with xenophobia. I would even go as far as saying that this is not xenophobia, because Polish people, Lebanese people, Pakistani people don't experience this level of discrimination. It's Afrophobia. It's one brother to the next. Yeah. And it has a lot to do with misconceptions that we have still towards one another as an African people. And this also for me is a reflection of how much training is still missing in our police force, because in general, because the thing is, we have this level of issues when somebody comes and they want to report a case of rape, for example, just incredibly ignorant responses to cases. And this for me is another example of that. It's embarrassing. It's humiliating for me to see somebody who's supposed to be, upholding the law of the land, and he's completely taking it within his own hands. For no reason, because in the video, Tayo says, "Listen, what do you have on me?
Yes. Yeah.
Why are you doing?
Why aren't you stopping other people?
Yes, search my car." He said, "You have the car. I'm gonna search my car before you plant anything."
Exactly.
He spoke not rudely, but he spoke like someone that knew his rights.
He knew
There's
his
a
rights.
difference from being rude and knowing your right. He spoke like, look, okay, I'm a resident Nigerian. I have my permit. Search my car. I'm not going with you to any station if you don't have a warrant. But mind you, there's situations where, I don't know if there are laws like that in South Africa, but in Nigeria, there's situations where police people do not need a warrant, because then you need, like, they just tell you at your discretion if you feel this person is not safe, or you feel the person, you premeditate this person has something that is going to incriminate them.
But
so,
I'm glad you're mentioning this about the Nigerian police, because xenophobia is a big issue in South Africa, so it's very hard to find, especially when there's an issue between Nigerians and South Africans, to separate it from xenophobia. But I'm going to dare to do that and look at the colonial construct of police in Africa, period. Police in Africa was never a formation of African governments on their own, individually. It was always the colonialists who left behind an order, a method of order, where they said, you know, to best keep these people in check, let's have their own people, give them some sort of a responsibility for them. And I'm not going to delve into all of the colonial mumbo jumbo around it, but this gave the police and the military in some case, but most certainly the police, because they're supposed to be the more domestic force, and it gave them a certain authority above their own people. And this is impunity in general. Black man to black man saying, I'm wearing the uniform, you better respect me. This could have happened with SARS in Nigeria. It could have happened anyway. So let me quickly say this. If we focus on it as impunity of the police, Taiwo's chances would not have been better anyway. What's the best thing we ask? We say police reform, but what do we want to see? Away from the technicalities of it, what do you want to see in in an African police?
Okay, so I think in this instance, I will say, while the colonial, the remnants of that colonial messaging from policing, even in our apartheid era and before that, when we had colonialism from the British, it definitely is still there. But I think there is a little bit more structure in terms of being able to have justice for people who feel that you know, police behaved unjustly towards them. I think in this instance, the reason why Taiwo wouldn't be able to enjoy that level of justice is purely because he happens to be a Nigerian living in South Africa. You know, because there have been other instances. There was a recent incident of a white woman who felt that the Metro Police had treated her in a way that, so the force that was meted out against her didn't meet whatever they thought she had done. She didn't sue, but
because Taiwo was saying he might not sue.
No, the video went viral though, and there've been conversations around you know, especially if you're looking at the activists within the communities, they've been saying, listen, we need to take action against this. So there is rights and recourse for this, but because he's not South African, I don't know.
Okay, well, we're gonna have to take a short break now. What do you want to see, you know, in the police in your area? You know, whether it's Nigerian, South African, or wherever else. What do you want to see change in the police for us in Nigeria, police force? So hashtag Jasiri, and let's know what you want to see. Okay. However, we're taking a short break and we'll continue in a moment. Welcome to Jasiri. It's time for Jasiri Moments. If you're just joining us, welcome. You missed a lot, but you're also down to the real fun part. Okay, now on Jasiri Moments, we take a time to focus on our guest and me. I don't even get a chance to run away from it. And we focus on something that's Jasiri about us. Jasiri means brave in Swahili. And we are looking at the times when we were brave, couldn't be brave, would have wanted to be brave, whatever it is that takes us away from ourselves and creates the personality that we want to be. So on Jasiri Moments today, we'll be sharing personal experiences from being naughty in our childhood. How does that make me brave? I have way too many experiences of this. However, let's start with Precious. It's a very short time we've got, so give it to me quickly and directly.
Well, I have so many as a child, but let me just give you this one. One time, my parents used to deal with putting cash in the house. So I walked into my dad's closet and I saw a bundle of cash, and I was like, oh. I put it in my bag. I had the intention of actually spending it in school, but then I remembered, I'm in Nigeria, no, this man is not going to, this money I took is actually going to come back to me. So, I just spent like 500 and I kept the bundle back. So my mom came to pick me. On a normal day, my dad actually does pick me. So my mom came to pick me and she just held my hand and she whispered, she said, your father is looking for money in the house. Did you take it? I said, yes, mommy, I took it to school because they said we should bring money to school. As in that brave moment of, because I knew anything could have happened. I could as well just have lied.
Now I know you're Nigerian.
I just said, they said, mommy, yeah, they said we should bring money to school.
Your ability to run past the crime was bravery for you.
Oh my God. I got home and I told my father face to face. I said, we have a project and they said we should bring.
The lying was also bravery.
It was brave of me.
Child.
Brave of me right there.
Thing to say.
I feel completely excluded.
Yeah, because you're thinking about some positive bravery here. So long story short, daddy believed it. Mommy knew you were lying, but everyone
they're probably seeing it right now. They're like, wow, that was a lie. I told them, I said it was a project. And I needed, because I brought the money back complete. And I said, and I took 500 because you people didn't give me money to school that day.
And I was in a hurry to, take what I really needed.
I actually wanted to ask you, but I was like, let me not ask I'm bringing it back, no need. And my dad was like, oh, okay, no problem. It's school related. Give me back my money. And he counted it was complete. I said I took 500 because you didn't give me money to school. He was like, okay.
All right. Oh, goodness, Precious.
Okay, wow. On a much less exciting.
I should have gone there last.
I think you should have. Yeah. Okay, mine, we live in a country in South Africa where racism and apartheid is part and parcel of our daily lives. So I grew up when we moved out of Soweto, we moved to a suburb which has many white people, but those, we call them amakaka in Zulu, which essentially means like white people who weren't able to, when they realized that there was an infiltration of a middle class moving into the areas, they weren't able to move into the super rich areas. Yeah. So they have a lot of, like bitterness
high
that
class
they
white
need to share space with black people.
Not correct Oyibo as we say.
No, they're not correct Oyibo.
So we're almost out of time, so quickly. Yeah.
So there's a shop around the corner that my friend and I used to go to often. And unfortunately, one day, the shop owner accused my friend and I of stealing. And typically, when that happens, people just let it go because, oh my gosh, umlungu, white people. No. My girl and I went and fetched our respective parents and we gave them a strong talking to. We asked them for evidence. We said, yo, this is the money our parents gave us. We would never steal in your Konkolo store. And that's my Chesiri moment.
Very brave.
All right. Now, I am the host that I'll do what I like, which is goodbye. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm not sharing a moment today, but I will on Tuesday. So thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.
This was lovely. We'll see you again on Jasiri next week. Goodbye. Have a great weekend.
Hi, my name is Tolu. You're watching News Central TV. Click here to subscribe to our YouTube channel.